This week, we're starting a new series on the Beatitudes. It's a great chance to start fresh. So, pick up a journal from one of the ushers or from the info desk and start keeping track of what speaks to you and pushes your buttons. This June, Lakeview is sending 8 members of our community to Zambia with Hands at Work. They will be hosting a live cake auction and silent auction on April 9th at 6:30. For more information, visit the newsstand or email breda@lakeviewchurch.com. One of the main tasks of a disciple of Jesus is to submit themselves to the story of God. But sometimes it's hard to know how to understand that story. Formation 1 is a class designed to help us do this. It gives an overview of the Old and New Testament, as well as providing participants with tools for interpreting and engaging the scriptures. Class will be offered Wednesday, April 20th, 27th, and May 4th from 7 to 9 in the atrium. For more information, visit the newsstand or email allison@lakeviewchurch.com. So that's it for this week. For more information, visit us at lakeviewchurch.com.
Hi friends, good morning. Good to see you. I'm going to invite the ushers to come forward this morning to collect our morning tithes and offerings as we begin a brand new series. Are you ready for a new series? Yeah, I don't think you are. I don't, really. And here's why. The happy are the murderers and the child molesters. Happy are the brutal. Happy are the bigoted. Happy are the drug lords and pornographers. Happy are criminals and terrorists, the perverted, the filthy, and the filthy rich. Happy is rapist Paul Bernardo. Happy is ISIS. Happy is North Korea's criminally insane Kim Jong-un. Happy is VW and its dishonest discharges. For the kingdom, God's kingdom, is available to them, to all of them, no matter where they've been or where they find themselves. These are Jesus' words, believe it or not. I know some of you are already giving me a puzzled look, saying, Manafo, you're like 30 seconds into this new one, you've already lost me. Where are you going? Because here's the thing. When we look at a list like that, we want to say, God, seriously, man. Not those types of people. Listen, the person or the limit for badness is actually me. Anyone who's worse than me cannot be in. Me and lower, okay. But not this type, not this list right here, because they're too far gone. We don't want those kinds of people into God's kingdom, part of what he's doing, part of his redemption story. But God says yes, because he's there for the broken and for the repulsive and for the write-offs. This is a little section in Matthew 5 known as the Beatitudes. And more than likely, Jesus didn't say all these things in one breath. Matthew has mashed it together as sort of Jesus' highlight reel, his A material. Most likely what happened was this: as Jesus would travel to different places and interacting with different people, he would say things like this, depending on who he was meeting and where he was and what trouble was going on or what the current climate was, et cetera, and he would take those things, real life people with real names going through real things, and he would say things about the kingdom of God in the midst of all of that. And then Matthew takes those sayings and he bookends it, and he says, listen, that's really a series of commands here that are actually the opposite, the complete reverse of how you've operated in life so far, how you've seen yourself, how you've seen God, and how you've seen the world. It's off-putting. But when you and I read the Beatitudes in our own pretty beautiful NIV translation, they come off a lot cleaner. They're more like this. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the weak, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So when we read it in this version, it feels much better, right? It's cute. You might print it off, put it in a frame, and maybe hang it over your mantle. Real nice. But to Jesus' original audience, these words would have been as offensive as the ones that I read you previously. Because Jesus is using language and ideas and images that were not suited, not appropriate for prime time listening. I almost feel like Jesus is kind of like Louis C.K. Ever seen the comic Louis C.K.? Man, I can't play any of his clips because way too foul. But he says things that are true. Things that you know are for real, but he says them out loud. You and I would just keep them here, or we might chuckle when he says them. But when someone says stuff like that, words that are really hard, very offensive out loud, that are true, it makes our skin crawl. It makes us feel really awkward. And that's what Jesus is doing. Because he's talking to a group of people who have built their lives around this idea that if you are good enough in God's kingdom, what he's doing, what he's about, you can be a part of that. You're actually in. Jesus is pulling that apart. He's pulling apart all those assumptions, all those weird things that people have adopted and now believe in. Things like, hey, if you're rich, that means that God is obviously for you and with you. Oh, and if you're poor, that obviously means that God is against you. And much like our own North American culture, and Jesus was facing into a religious belief of his day that said, hey, you can be happy, you're blessed, if you're rich. If you've got power, if you're beautiful, if you're intelligent, if you are important. That's how you know you're happy. That's how you know you're blessed. That's how you know that God is on your side. Jesus says no. He tips the scales, he reverses it and says no, blessed or happy are the spiritual zeros. Those who are bankrupt, those who are depraved, deprived, and deficient. And the crowd is stunned, because they'd never heard anything like this before. Dallas Willard explains that Jesus knew that much of what Peter and the others thought to be important was not really so, and that what they thought to be of no importance was often of great significance before God. Their thinking would have to be rearranged before they could understand their reward for leaving all to follow him. So he adds this reversal formula to help them keep thinking. So Jesus is rearranging the building blocks of their faith, and he's being offensive. Not those types, Lord. Don't let those guys in. Remember, I'm the limit for badness. No one who's more bad than me. So in the same breath, Jesus is soothing those people who know they're bad, who know they're crooked, who know they're messed up. But he's also calling out those who are self-sufficient and self-satisfied and self-righteous. And the list that Matthew gives us isn't this exhaustive list. It's not a list of strengths and weaknesses. Instead, like I said before, these are actual people Jesus is talking to. Real life people that he knows on his travels, that he is confronted with, those that he's actually hung out with, people to people, town to town. There's real names attached to these things. And Jesus is calling them out as he sees them. And I would suggest to you this morning that in the same way, you and I are actually waiting to have our names called out as well. And maybe it's a little bit like this. Watch.
Time for me to see the friends at home in the magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, tell me today, did all my friends have fun at play? All my friends had fun today. I see David's having a special day today, and Olivia Joy had a special day on Sunday, and I see Robin had a special day yesterday, and Dana's having a special day today, and so is Reginald and Edward John and Margaret, and I see Justin and Megan and Courtney and Brick and Mark and Rachel and Sheila and Caroline are all having special days, and Cicely and Ashley and Matthew and Jose.
Okay, lady. I know what your scam is. You're going to make me watch this educational show for 25 minutes, and at the end, you're going to bait me because I'm going to wait and listen for my name. And as a kid, that's what I would do, and I know I've totally dated myself. Anyone else watch Romper Room? You totally did. All right, yeah. And you were maybe like me. You waited for the dumb lady to say your name at the end of the show. But she never said mine. And I got wise to it as a kid, so I'd watch some other cartoon, then tune in with 5 minutes left. I wasn't going to watch her education for 25 minutes. And there I was, I waited anxiously to the end of the show, hoping that she would say Joe, that she would say Joseph, but never. And the Beatitudes actually carry the same vibe, but there is this underlying anxiousness to be seen, to be known, to have our name called, to be acknowledged. So what Jesus does to his first listeners, he does to us today. He says, hey, I see you. You, the addict, I see you. You, who's got trouble with drink, I see you. You, with suicidal tendencies, I see you. You, with the kid problems, I see you. You, with the messed up family life, I see you. Those of you who are drowning in credit card debt, I see you, Jesus says. Those of you who are caught in dead-end jobs, I see you. I see you. You who are broken, Jesus says, my kingdom has come to what? To heal, renew, to restore, to give you peace. You who are broken, Jesus says, I have come for you. In the middle of whatever mess you find yourself in the middle of whatever brokenness, in the middle of whatever fix that you have created for yourself or that has been imposed upon you, Emmanuel, God with us, sees you. So no wonder happy is the rapist. Why? Because he or she got away with something? They exerted their power because they hurt someone? No. They're happy because God's love, forgiveness, and grace-drenched embrace is wide enough for them and is available to them. So that's why happy are the filthy rich. Why? Because their bank accounts are great? They've got lots of zeros? No. Happy are the filthy rich because God's value system, God's economy is not based on whatever's in the bank or what's not in the bank. It doesn't matter how anything performs. They are well loved. That's why happy are the corporations made up of people who are either spilling oil into oceans or releasing cars that are releasing toxic gases more than they should. Why? Because they're making up for their mistakes? No. Because God can clean up what they can't clean up. And so Willard continues and helps us out by saying, no one is actually being told that they are better off for being poor, for mourning, for being persecuted, and so on, or that the conditions listed are recommended ways to well-being before God or man, nor the Beatitudes indications of who will be on top after the revolution. They are explanations and illustrations drawn from the immediate setting of the present availability of the kingdom through personal relationship to Jesus. And they single out cases that provide proof that in him, the rule of God from the heavens truly is available in life circumstances that are beyond all human hope. God's kingdom is available to us now, no matter where we find ourselves. And we do not have to earn it. We are allowed to have it precisely because we are broken. So in a sense, we can see these things, our trials, our brokenness, perhaps as gifts. But not in a way that God gifts you with pain or God gifts you with disease or God gifts you with trouble. No, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But perhaps the gift is in this, is that in that moment, in that brokenness, in that situation, perhaps you have an opportunity to find or to be found by Jesus in a way that is absolutely unique, in a way that you haven't experienced before, a chance to see yourself and see the world and see God from his point of view, something that you have not been able to see before. And it's only come because of the broken spot that you are in. So maybe that's the gift. And like all gifts, really what it boils down to is an indication that you are loved. So then, this first beatitude, we could read it one of two ways. The NIV says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Or as Eugene Peterson puts it in the Message, I like it. He says, "You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule." Let's break down a couple of key words here real quick. Blessed means happy, but it's this existing state, like in the present, right now happy, not do X and you get Y happy. You're already at Y. You're happy in the present. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven, not theirs will be maybe someday, kind of, sort of. It's not a reward at the end of something. It's something that we possess in the here and now. And when Jesus uses words like poor in spirit, it's slang for, it's another way of saying for those of us who recognize our need for God. Theirs and theirs only is the kingdom of heaven. There is nobody in God's kingdom who does not recognize or know who are not poor in spirit. God's kingdom is for those who realize and admit and act upon the fact that they cannot do life independent of God. And if that makes us weak or lesser or dependent, then so be it. Think about it in this way, that Jesus was the first world leader to inaugurate a kingdom with a heroic role for losers. He spoke to an audience raised on stories of wealthy patriarchs, strong kings, and victorious heroes. And much to their surprise, he honored instead people who have little value in the visible world. The poor and meek, the persecuted and those who mourn, social rejects, the hungry and thirsty. His stories consistently featured the wrong people as heroes. The prodigal and not the responsible son. The good Samaritan and not the good Jew. Lazarus, not the rich man. The tax collector, not the Pharisee. As Charles Spurgeon expressed it, his glory was that he laid aside his glory. And the glory of the church is when she lays aside her respectability and her dignity and counts it to be her glory to gather together the outcasts. So then, happy right now are the losers. Those of us who recognize our brokenness and our need for God, no matter what present we find ourselves in. And if that doesn't make sense, let's break it down just a little bit further. How does that play itself out in real life? Here's an example. It's cloudy outside. I knew it was going to be cloudy outside because my phone told me. I can't control the clouds. I also can't control the fact that it might snow on Wednesday. What is the deal, Prairies? What is the deal? It is April. Come on. I can prepare for the clouds. I can maybe wear a coat, maybe boots, maybe an umbrella in case it rains. I can't change it, but I can respond to it. But I've also lived through clouds before, and clouds aren't going to keep me in the house or hiding underneath my bed. I can deal with clouds. Clouds aren't going to stop me. Jesus is taking the same approach when it comes to the Beatitudes. He wants us to see beyond the weather. He wants us to see the world from a different point of view. So we might say, but it's cloudy outside. And Jesus' response would be, the kingdom is here. We might say, but I'm totally busted this time. And Jesus would say, the kingdom is here. And sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed. Either way, the kingdom is here. But yesterday, you should have seen what happened yesterday. Yeah, I get it, but the kingdom is here. But what about tomorrow? What's tomorrow going to bring? Doesn't matter. The kingdom is here. What does it mean that the kingdom is here? God is present. God is active. Wherever you are, God is. And it doesn't matter if you are good or bad, or you're an outcast or included, whether you are accomplished or a failure, the kingdom is here. God is present. God is with you. God loves you. God will never leave you. Whatever is going on, God's kingdom, his active work is in operation. So then God's kingdom is actually a state that we find ourselves in. We cannot earn it by doing good things, and we can't do just enough bad things just to qualify for it. It's not the way it works. We are welcome to be around his table. We are welcome to be a part of his kingdom. We are welcome to see the world as he sees it. We are welcome to participate in the renewal of all things. How? By giving up, by recognizing our state, our brokenness, our need for God, and then just being rested and satisfied in Jesus alone. The trouble is, that's way harder than it sounds. Because I've been geared and reared and programmed to be successful, to be strong, to get things done, to make a man out of myself. And Jesus says, forget all that. I'm working by a different value system. When we decide to move in that direction, things get a little bit messy. Messy Christianity is a good term for the place where desperation meets Jesus. And the church is the place where the incompetent, the unfinished, and even the unhealthy are welcome. And once we admit how unlovely we are, how unattractive we are, how lost we are, Jesus shows up unexpectedly. And this doesn't mean you look down on yourself and you self-loathe and I hate me and I'm worthless and I'm a piece of garbage. That's not what Jesus is talking about right now. No, it's just, again, simply to realize your need for him and giving up trying to make it through life on your own. It means accepting his invitation to come around his table and to be served by him. Again, not because you've earned it, but simply because you are loved.